Welcome to the Overflow Podcast, the podcast for serious-minded young adults seeking to deepen their faith and make a meaningful impact in their communities, workplaces, and local churches. Join us as we explore how faith meets action.
Hello and welcome to the Overflow Podcast. I'm Jeff Ludka along with two very special guests. They're going to be talking about their mission trip to Colombia. Well, one of them is kind of a guest. We have Joe. You already know Joe. He's a guest slash host. So he's a hest. No, he's a ghost. We have our ghost Joe with us and his wonderful wife Izzy. But I don't know if our listeners know Izzy very well. She had a cameo very early on.
Said hello earlier.
Yep. So Izzy, why don't you introduce yourself? That way we know who we're talking to, and then we'll dive in.
Yep. I'm Izzy Ryan, Joe's wife, as established. I born and raised in Colorado and moved out here with Joe 2 years ago. We both work at the same engineering company, so it's kind of fun.
Yep.
But yeah.
Very cool. Now, what that way we have, some way to connect with you, Izzy. Is there anything, do you have any hobbies, anything fun, any good stories about Joe that our listeners need to hear?
Well, I find this really fun, but a lot of people probably find it boring, but I love puzzles.
Yikes.
Love puzzles.
She does. We have 40 puzzles.
Yeah.
And that's not a joke.
No, that's not an exaggeration.
Actually, I think I've seen your puzzle collection. And I believe you donated one of your puzzles or let my mother borrow one of your puzzles one time.
Yep.
And I did not help with that puzzle, I don't think, at all. I was just like...
That's okay.
But hey, more power to you for liking puzzles and board games, right?
Yeah.
And all that kind
puzzles,
of stuff.
Board games. Grew up in Colorado in the mountains, so
Nice.
love everything outdoors as well.
Yep. And she is a host of Survivor, so...
Connecticut version of Survivor.
She puts on her own version of Survivor and invites people to do it. It's kind of cool. But, today... Joe, I don't even know if you got to say hi.
No, I don't think you let me say hi at all.
Sorry.
I was just once Izzy's here, I'm just kind of old news. So
This is true. She's definitely your better half. Yeah,
That's
100%.
why I married her.
That's good. That's good. Did you pay him to say that?
I'm not allowed to say on camera.
That's true, yeah. But today we're going to be talking about their mission trip to Colombia, and it's really to help young adults, to help people get a better understanding of what it's like to go on a mission trip, why it's beneficial for young adults to go on a mission trip, the experiences that you have there, how you can grow spiritually through them. So we're going to kind of dive into that. And we'll start out with maybe a brief overview of the trip. That way they kind of know what was the purpose, why'd you go, and then we'll dive into more specifics.
Yeah, and we probably should preface that this trip was specifically through our church that we go to, and it's not like we went to help them specifically build something or to go attend youth camps that they were putting on, which is sometimes the typical reason that people go on missionary trips. So our church has just started this new program where we're trying to be more engaged with all of our missionaries, and by doing so, we had... last year, like a year-long project of once per month, we would concentrate on a specific missionary that we support. And part of that was on Wednesday nights, we'd have phone calls with them and just kind of hear from them how they're doing, where they're at, what they were looking for from us as a church, and what they needed. And a lot of them overwhelmingly said, we'd love to have people come down and visit us.
Yeah.
So this trip was the first trip that our church got to essentially send a group of people, or 2 people in our case.
So we got to be the guinea pigs.
Yeah, we were the guinea pigs. And that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And we were really honored to be able to do that. So, and so we went to Colombia and visited Chesley and Jessica Howe. And they've been down there close to
3 years.
3 years, yeah. And they've been married coming up on 2 years.
Coming up on 2.
So actually pretty similar life stage as far as marriage to us, and that we're pretty sure that's kind of why they asked us to go. It just made sense and clicked there. So yeah, it was really cool to do that.
So we flew there October 11th, which was a Friday, and then we flew back October 19th, which was the following Saturday. So it was basically a week that we were there. We started out, we were in Medellin, Colombia, which is a town of like 5 million people. So it's a pretty big,
Pretty large
area.
town. It's a city.
City. Sorry.
Yeah, I was like, town.
I use the two interchangeably. So.
Yeah. What we flew in, and if you've been to different countries, you know how this works. But I mean, we went from Boston to Miami, and we actually ended up waiting like almost close to 3 hours before our flight from Miami took off to Medellin. So we got in closer to like 12 o'clock, and then didn't get into their apartment till 1. But we went through customs, and then kind of had a little hiccup with customs because they just moved. The house did within Colombia. And so we didn't have their new address, and they asked us, and then we didn't have enough service. And then we were just standing there awkwardly off to the side, trying to reach them. But it all worked out, and we were able to connect with them after getting through customs. And then that weekend was packed. Yeah. It was busy. So you want to take us through Saturday a little bit, and then we'll keep walking
So
through.
Saturday, we got in like super late Friday night, and then Saturday for breakfast, we met with Chesley and Jessica, and they're kind of the lead missionary that they've been working with at the churches there. His name is Miguel, and then there's another American family down there right now learning English. So we all kind of met up for breakfast, and then we went over to the main church. So they have 2 different churches there. They have the more established church, which they're just about 6 years for being a church. And so that was the first church plant that Miguel did and that Chesley's been helping with. And then pretty recently, they just started a new church plant in a different town. So which is a lot smaller, and they're still trying to get it going, trying to get the numbers up. But so we went to the main church, which is in Caldas, which is the south side of the Medellin area, and did some outreach there with the church. Joe got to go try to pass out pamphlets and like Romans Road things to the natives without really knowing any Spanish.
Yeah, I would be like, Buenos dias. And just kind of like put it in front of them, and then they take it.
So that's literally all you said is Buenos dias.
Yeah, Buenos dias, Buenas tardes. That was pretty much
That's the extent of your Spanish knowledge.
Yep.
How did you
was when we got there. Oh. He knows more now.
I don't know that much more. I forgot it all.
That's unfortunate.
So there's that. And then for the ladies, I worked with Jessica for this, setting up like a tea party for the younger age girls. So I would say middle schoolish age. And they did a tea party and talked about etiquette and table manners, things like that. So that was cool, and tied it into like biblical reasons why we should have these different etiquettes and why our appearance is important.
Yeah, and that's something that they've been doing, not just this one time they were there. They've been trying to do that monthly, where they have an ability or a way to reach the younger women in the church, and that's something that is definitely needed down there, where that's not this family structure down there is pretty diverse and or not diverse. It's divided. There's a lot of divided families down there.
Oh, wow.
So.
Okay. Similar to America with just like divorcees, or is it a high rate? Do you know?
As far as what they said on the marriage retreat, I think it could be similar. Okay. But they were talking about even the families that are not split, like the dads are working 15-hour days, and they're not a part of the family life at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they also said it's a very
talk.
No, matriarchal. It's not patriarchal.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
matriarchal.
Yeah.
Where the woman is, even though the man might have like more of a macho appearance in public, the woman is kind of like driving everything at the house and at the home, and so that was interesting from like a biblical perspective, and them down there seeing a lot of issues with that in the homes and in the families. So that's one of the outreaches they have right now, and they try to do that monthly. And then while they were doing that, I went and painted their old apartment. So that was the extent of our construction activity. But yeah, they're moving from Caldas, where the original church is, and they have their new apartment in Bejo, which Bejo is actually kind of more of a nicer town, part of the city. And something interesting that we didn't really know specifically before going is that the city and most of Colombia is divided up into what they call stratas, which are basically like medieval class systems.
Oh, wow.
Where they start with strata 1 and go up to strata 9. And like strata 9 is like the president or a couple other people.
Yeah.
And strata 1s are like living without really
Like
working water.
Brick
or
walls and concrete floors.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah. And that was prevalent throughout the city. And they actually have maps.
Yeah, they have like government designated maps of like what strata each area is. And so the Caldas Church, which is the southern one, the more established one, it's in more of, they said, a strata 2 to 3 area. So it's kind of more on the lower end. It's a little bit more rural, kind of like the outskirts of the city, which contributes to that. And then the Bejo Church, which is the new church up north, is more in a strata 3 to 4 area, which I'd say 3 to 4 is kind of the average place to be.
Yeah. Throughout
and
the city.
Yeah. And the city's in a valley, and it just kind of keeps on going through the valley, which was kind of neat. But there's mountains on both sides that are very steep, and up on the steep parts is where you find the strata 1 and strata 2. Harder to get around, harder to get access to things, but you can just go up there and build a house and they won't kick you out. But
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, most people down there don't really have like land deeds or titles or anything to their houses. Wow. Specifically on the strata 1, 2 areas where they just build and just stay there until either someone kicks them out or they don't get kicked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we went. We got dinner that night. We actually got some traditional Colombia food on Saturday night, and that was interesting. So
yeah, Joe got the interesting one.
Really?
I still got traditional Colombian food, but wasn't as unique.
some of it I really liked. Other parts I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Right.
I'll try it, and then moved on. You know? But and then Sunday was probably our busiest day while we were down. We started church in Caldas, which so we're staying in Bejo with them, and then we drive to Caldas. And in the morning, it took like 45-ish minutes.
Yeah.
Had services, and Jessica did a little bit of like discipling early on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then after we're done with service, we drove back to Bejo to the Bejo church. And by the time we got there, it was close. It was like 1:30-ish.
Yeah, 1:30.
And so we were then setting up for those English classes that the American family down there is helping teach, where they're basically teaching all of them right now.
Yeah.
And then immediately following the English classes from 2 to 3, 3 o'clock, they have the Bejo church service. And so we were there until 4:10-ish.
Yeah. And then I had to race back over to Caldas they call it a Bible Institute.
Yeah.
It's like a Bible study, basically, where they dive deeper into topics. And then there was a birthday party after that. So it was a long
busy
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
A lot of back and forth. But it was neat to see, though, because this is what Chesley and Jessica do every day.
Right.
But not only just them, also Miguel and his wife who lead the churches. And then there's a local couple, Jason and his wife. And so all three of them are constantly going back and forth between these two churches.
Yeah.
So it's neat to see
in person
and
be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really cool. So, and then following that, we had Monday. And Monday we had basically the entire day a marriage retreat. And this is where I kind of learned about the Colombian culture a little bit, or even South American culture. And they had talked to us about this earlier. Izzy had even told me about this from her experiences in Guatemala and Paraguay, where time is less of a stigma. People are not worried about being on time as much.
Interesting.
So getting ready for the retreat, we were like, all right, we have to wake up at 5 a.m. so that we can go pick up this couple from the Bejo Church and then drive to Caldas. And then from there, we'll all go to the retreat center area.
And we were supposed to leave the Caldas Church at 6:30 a.m. in the morning to be at where we were going for the marriage retreat by 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got to the Caldas Church before we had to leave.
Yeah. It was good traffic that morning.
Yeah.
They weren't sure. I guess it's hit or miss on how the traffic's going to be.
Yeah.
Blessings.
Yeah. So we got there with plenty of time to spare, which was good. But then we waited until 8 a.m.
Oh, wow.
To leave.
to go to the marriage retreat. So that's where Joe was like,
What? And so, if someone's late, okay, we're waiting for them to be late because whatever, they get here and then we do whatever. But what ended up happening was the person that we were waiting for, he got there. And then we were all like, I thought we had to like either take something from him or someone had to go in that person's car. No, he just got there and then we all went the same direction. And
So there was a bus that they had organized to carpool to get a lot of people there because there were
like 15 couples.
15 or so couples. Yeah. It was,
that's awesome.
And it was the first marriage retreat that they've done as a church, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I thought they did it really well, but it's kind of like an Airbnb. They rent out, they call them fincas, Finca. And it's just people with extra money build like a house up kind of in the mountains and rent it out on the weekends to people. And so we rented the finca for the day.
Nice.
And they had like a pavilion area and like a little pool, a place where we set up a volleyball net. They have like
fishing pond.
Like a little like pleasure fishing almost. There's a small little artificial pond stocked with fish.
Hey,
and
there you go.
Stick your
free fish.
And it wasn't. It was like pieces of wood with a string on the end with a hook.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It was kind of like those fair games or whatever.
Yeah. Did you catch anything?
We did.
Joe did.
Nice.
Yeah.
We hooked a fish through the eye.
Yeah.
Wow. That
was kind of
aggressive.
bad.
It was kind of a gross thing.
Yeah.
Because his eye came off.
I don't like. I don't like touching fish.
We're gonna have to now put a warning on this episode about graphic
description.
One of the Colombians had to come over and help us get the fish
He's
off.
a slippery fish.
And you're like, ooh, that's a problem.
But no, it was a good time.
It was fun. They had 4 or 5 different lessons with different couples speaking. Chesley and Jessica did a session, and then. But
and mind you, everything, including all of the services on Sunday, and then everything in the retreat, is all in Spanish.
Yeah,
all of it. So I gained very little from this. I would read what we were reading because I could figure out based upon the references what we were reading, and then I'd try to like pull context from the couple words I'd pick up. But most of the time it was like,
that's
Yeah.
Joe's just suffering through these sessions. And what would you say, did the trip like teach you anything about missionaries, or just kind of reinforce what you already knew maybe about missionaries, their needs, how they operate?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, growing up, right, as a believer in the church, you think about missionaries off in a foreign land, living in grass huts, doing these things where they're out with natives that are digging in the dirt. And some people do that, right?
Yeah.
That is some people, but a lot of the people, like most people in the world, live in fairly similar cities to what we live in.
Yeah.
And it's people everywhere needs to be reached by the gospel.
Yeah.
And that's what Chesley and Jessica are doing. A big thing, though, that I noticed is Chesley is very different from everyone that lives there. Mm-hmm. He is very much an outsider. People can 100% pick up he's a foreigner. Like, it's not a diverse country over there.
Yeah, no.
Anyone that's white is either there as a visitor, or they're, most of the time, they have like family down there because of a spouse or something. Like, like we were the only white people in the family that was the white, and then Chesley, and that was it.
Yeah.
And anyone else, you're like, oh, that person's white. It's kind of like it was like a rare sighting. There's Waldo. And so I think I can imagine, and Chesley said this, he was like multiple times said, it's just good to speak English with someone and not have to think about what I'm going to say. Yeah. Because obviously he's still learning Spanish. Yeah. He's really good. Like he's picked it up really fast. But that's still like a pressure, right, on him. So just that type of social thing was interesting to see in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also something that Chesley pointed out to us in the area of Medellin, there's 5 million people, but he knows of 5 Bible teaching churches in that whole area. So there's a lot of people.
Yeah, one
that
church per million people.
Like,
there wasn't a million people at church.
Yeah. So there's a lot of need there in the city, in the big city aspect too.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's cool that he's trying to do, which I think a lot of missionaries try to do this, but Chesley expressed this as well, is that his goal is to disciple and train up nationals, so native Colombians, to become pastors and church leaders of the future in Colombia, and try to go out and plant more churches and be able to bring in more people. I think just overall the need there, and that's just one city in Colombia too.
Right.
And
you still got Bogota, you still got
a
bunch of other cities just in that one country, and then extrapolate that to South America.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And you had mentioned, Izzy, that his goal is to train up pastors and disciple them and have them go out and then spread the gospel and reach their peers, their other,
fellow citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you made the point, which was interesting, that young adults here we're kind of on that other side where we are discipling, but we're also being discipled in our training years of growing up to serve and to lead in the church and in our community. So I thought that was really interesting. What about spiritually? Was there a specific learning outcome or an impact spiritually that going on the mission trip had on you or showed you?
Yeah, I would say that just first of all, the presence of, or the understanding, like as he had said, that there's definitely a need there. There's definitely also darkness there. And that they're constantly battling spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
Especially with how much, it was almost like there's a large hold in that area from the Catholic Church. And it is very, like, I think you would be surprised if you went to a Catholic church traditionally here in the United States and went down, and how different it is, and how much more of a praying to the saints, and the saints are almost elevated to like godlike status.
Yeah. Like they can answer your prayers, they can meet your needs. There's a specific virgin who watches over all the taxi drivers. And whenever it's her day, all the taxi drivers are out there with like big statues of her and things, and
parading in the
parading through the streets. And it's very like almost like all these different virgins and saints are treated like gods.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that is such a strong hold on the area, and then understanding that there is definitely going to be resistance, specifically by the devil, against what Chesley and Jessica are doing. And they definitely need our help financially and personally, but for sure prayer.
Yeah. And I think something that like I struggle with, it's like, well, I can't really do anything, so I guess I'll pray. But that's the complete wrong mindset. Prayer is the most important thing we can do. If we happen to have extra and we can give money or we can go down and visit, that's good. But prayer is helpful, and it's the most important thing we can do for our missionaries.
Yeah.
What impact do you think, having a visitor from a supporting church come and visit Chesley and Jessica, what effect or impact do you think that has on them, or on a missionary that gets a visit from a supporting church? What is the main emphasis? Is it encouragement? Is it coming alongside? What impact do you think that has?
I mean, specifically for our trip, it was encouragement. It was us being there to try to revive and give them just a break.
Yeah.
They said a lot that like they enjoy when people come down to visit because it's almost like their vacation.
Yeah. They get a reason to go do all the local things or
all the
go
fun
on these
stuff.
hikes.
So I think it's a good time for them to get rejuvenated and recharged. Little plug there. But it would also be just like what I was saying about Chesley. I mean, you're in a different culture all the time.
Yeah.
Just being able to talk to someone that you were
from the same culture
you grew up in for 20 years of your life, I mean, that in and of itself is rejuvenating.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times it's thought of prayer and money is the only way to, which are huge. Obviously,
Right.
prayer works. And I think that if you have the means
Yeah.
to be able to actually support financially missionaries and give to your church that supports missionaries, I think is huge. But like to actually go in person, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. And I think like if I think about it and a friend comes and visits me, I'm
Yeah.
like super excited about it. And I just feel,
Right.
rejuvenated from that alone.
Yeah.
So let alone being in a completely different environment, a different, culture, different language, and
Yeah.
having someone take their time to come visit you,
Yeah.
I think is huge encouragement and helps you feel seen
Yeah.
and remembered where you are.
Yeah, because they're real people too.
Right.
They're no
Yeah.
different than us.
Yeah.
They have the same needs. Any need specific things you can think of for missionaries that might be different from us, or is it pretty much, they get discouraged too, they need help too? you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think for Chesley and Jessica, their needs would be fairly similar to our needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mostly because the city in which they're living in is fairly modern. Like they're not off in the Amazon and just living in a hut and
Yeah.
they need, I need like all of this like
Right.
medical supplies because who knows when I'm going to see a doctor. That's not where they're at right now. They do go to the Amazon once a year though, which
Oh,
is
nice.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. And they had some interesting stories. But so I would say for them specifically, and this probably doesn't apply, and I know it doesn't apply to all missionaries, I would say their needs are more similar to ours. So, and I
Okay.
think that helps.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps me to see them in a light that is more easily relatable.
Yeah.
And I know I struggle in just general walk, right?
Yeah.
With the Lord or general like my relationship with Izzy and honoring her. And so that's stuff that we can identify with
Right.
easily and
Yeah.
be able to pray for that.
That's awesome. What do you think? Why would if there's a young adult listening, why should they go on a mission trip? Why would you encourage them to? Maybe what benefit it has for them? We kind of talked about it a little bit, but why should a young adult consider going on a mission trip?
Yeah. Well, so I think, it's pretty clear in the Bible that we're all called to share and glorify God's name among all nations. This doesn't necessarily mean everyone goes out and becomes a permanent missionary in a different country or different area. But I think there's two different categories. There's those that go and then those that basically hold the rope and support those people. But I think going on a missions trip and seeing what it's actually like on the missions field gives you a better idea if maybe God moves you and calls you to go out and be a missionary, but also if he doesn't call you to do that and he calls you to be the rope holder, the person who stays and supports from home, you have a better idea of how to pray for the missionaries and what they're going through and, kind of the needs that they have there and just be more personal and more educated, I'd say, with your prayers and how to support them.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with specifically even the education thing. I think it's easy for us in our lives to get so focused on where we're at and our tiny little circle that we run in and kind of lose sight of the bigger circle of Christians throughout the world and what they deal with and what it's like there. It was super eye-opening for me. I haven't been to South America before, and it was super eye-opening just to go to that place and that culture and see how they operate and then see what that presents as challenges to the missionaries there. And I think you can't get that from reading a book or reading something online.
Yeah. I think it's also really cool to see how other people in different parts of the world worship the God that you do.
Yeah.
Because there might be certain things that they do slightly differently or because of culture, things like that, or like their services at the churches we went to were not structured the same way, but they do that so that they can bring in more people and help more people.
Help train up.
Train up people. But I think being able to see in person what it's like to be a missionary, even if you're in a big city or whether you're in a rural area or something, just being able to see what it's like, and just it's encouraging for me to see people of the same faith worship the same God, but it's in a different language and a different place.
The same
it's
God,
just
different
language.
Yeah.
I find that cool.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, the gospel is universal, cross-cultural. I mean, it works in, other parts of the country here. It works in other nations, and that's the beauty of the gospel, and how it just can relate to anyone. And there's different ways to do church. There's different ways to worship, but we're all worshiping the same God, and that's super cool. So to boil it all down, a young adult should go on a mission trip because it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're going to necessarily be going.
Yeah, we got to go paragliding.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So you actually get to have fun. It's not all, you're not going to be putting your head in the sand or, running away from, people chasing you necessarily.
Hopefully not. If you do, that's another great story to come back with.
Exactly. I mean, but pretty eye-opening, hopefully life-changing. And missionaries are important. And but we are also a form of missionary in our own communities, in our own places. And it sounds like, there's spiritual darkness in Colombia, just like in New England, there's spiritual darkness in other parts of the country. So thank you guys so much for giving us a little insight into your trip to Colombia.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's
Thanks
good to
for
have you,
having
Izzy.
us on, Jack.
It's great to have our ghost here with us, Joe, and his wonderful wife, Izzy. Thank you guys for that. You can go ahead and check us out on Instagram, Overflow New England, or take a peek at our website, overflownewengland.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can either comment on this video or podcast, wherever you're listening to it, or send us an email, podcast@overflownewengland.com. But for now,
Until next time,
and until next time Izzy is a guest on the show, we're going to sign off. So thanks so much for listening. We will see you later.
yeah.
Bye.